Good morning and welcome to the Sport Talk Show, where sport is what we talk. Today we'll be discussing the way that politics is involved with sports and the positive and negative influences that the governing bodies have on these sports.
The governing body of the Olympics is the most major influence on sport. They have treated women unequally to men and still today. In the first Olympics in 1896, females were not allowed to compete. This discriminated against females and since then created a divide between male and females in sport. However, it has been closing recently now that females can compete in all events in the Olympics. But the fact that they are competing in all events does not rule out the discrimination against females in sport. The Olympic governing body may allow females to compete. However, they have to follow different rules, such as they have to wear different attire. Recently, in 2012 Olympics, the first Olympics where females were allowed to box. They tried forcing the females to wear dresses. However, they always have worn shorts and singlets just like the males. The females argued against it and won. However, this shows that the governing bodies of sport still do not take females serious and discriminate against them within sport.
Female masculinity in modern sport is a major issue, as women are often criticised for being at their physical peak. Certain sports require females to be physically strong, as this allows them to be at their physical peak and perform to the best of their ability. Males, however, often criticise women for their muscularity, saying it isn't feminine, and frequently mistake muscular women to be bisexual. Their physical attributes does not in any way suggest their sexual orientation. Men give out the criticism, as they don't know how it feels to receive such detrimental comments to themselves about their sexuality. Speaking of men in sport, the sponsorship and media coverage they receive greatly outweighs the benefits women receive. Women are less likely to gain sponsorships as their status is not as well known and regarded as that of the men. An example can be Usain Bolt with his two major sponsors, Gatorade and Puma. Try and think of a woman right now and name their sponsors. Difficult, isn't it? This lack of knowledge about women in sport comes from the lack of media support they receive. Female elite athletes should be recognised for the tremendous work they are doing. However, the public care more about male sports than women's sport because it's apparently played at a different level. This is a common misconception. Yes, men may be stronger, but the women possess just as much skill as the men and deserve to be recognised for it. All in all, women deserve equal rights and opportunities in any sport to that of the men.
Women's participation in sport has a long history. It is a history marked by division and discrimination, but also one filled with major accomplishments by female athletes and important advances for gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls. In 2007, the All England Club at Wimbledon announced that they would be paying women players the same prize money as men. This move was widely applauded as a step forward for women, for the game of tennis, and for the world of athletics in general. Recently, Serena Williams complained to the Wimbledon officials about putting her at court 2 and the top-seeded men being scheduled at the centre court, despite her winning more Wimbledons together than a lot of the men players. Spokesman Johnny Perkins defended the officials by saying a lot of factors are included when scheduling the courts. He also explained that factors like TV broadcasting, rankings of the players, and what people want to see are looked at before assigning the courts. This obviously indicates that more people would rather watch men play sport than women, which is why the women are placed at the court 2 rather than the centre court in tennis.
Today we'll be discussing the way that politics is involved with sports and the positive and negative influences that the governing bodies have on these sports. Interestingly, I found in my studies that the average pay for a female golfer, a professional golfer, is $45,000, whereas for a male, it's about $75,000 to $1 million. And at the top end, females only get about $5 million with endorsements, whereas males can go from 5 to 10 million without any endorsements at all. I also found it interesting that there's only two major female sporting competitions, the LPGA and the Rolex Women's World Championships. But men have several international golfing tournaments such as the PGA, the Men's World Championships, etc., etc. In other sports recently, it's come to my attention that politics has had a huge influence. For example, in recent times, one of the star Wallabies backs has said that the coach is poisonous to the team's success. And this has made quite a big thing in the press recently. However, even though other of the athletes in the team agree with him, the coaching selectors are part of the ARU, the governing body of rugby in Australia, and they have not decided to make any change. Obviously, it's important to have a coach that the team responds well to. This is not a matter of how the governing body likes the coach, as well as more how the coach affects the team. This is also common in a lot of other sports, especially team sports such as soccer, football, cricket, where there's not always an exact score, time, or quantitative measure of how skilled someone is. This sometimes happens where there's a certain selector that watches and bases all the team choices and things like that on his own personal opinion. These people are often very prone to bias and other things, and of course they're part of the governing bodies, or they're also chosen by the governing bodies, which makes a huge difference. Finally, on an international level, I would like to point out that there's a difference between the rules and laws the governing bodies have. For example, in Australia, the governing bodies are quite switched on and strict on athletes behaving well. So if someone goes out and has a rowdy night and gets into some trouble, then they often get banned for a few games, or some big issue like that occurs. Whereas other international sort of teams, maybe from the US and other things, their elite athletes don't get banned, or there's no stoppage in their performance. And due to this, the other teams often end up doing quite well. They have more of a chance because their elitist athletes are performing, whereas sometimes due to disciplinary factors, we have to field a secondary team or a secondary athlete. And that's all for today. Thank you for tuning into the Sport Talk Show, where sport is what we talk.